Right. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Morse. I want to welcome you to Softvision Suite webinar. Today, we will be reviewing how to quickly view and access key data through the dashboard elements. Okay, so before we get started, an introduction to our customer success team. We're the ones that run these monthly webinars for you and are assigned to each of you to help ensure your success on our products and help spread best practices and knowledge to the community. If you have any questions or have any recommendations for webinar topics, please feel free to reach out to us. A few other housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone will be on mute to reduce any background noise. Please utilize the Q&A window located at the bottom of your screen to ask us questions and interact throughout the session. We'll save some time at the end of the session to review any outstanding questions that we have. A recording of this webinar will be made available for your viewing on our YouTube channel as well as our support site. So we have a lot of information we'll be covering today. So things you might want to reference later, you'll have access to the recording here. All right, so to get started with an introduction to dashboard elements. So the elements are the first thing that you see when you log into Softvision Suite. It's providing you with key information that you can get at a glance. And the elements many of them have links that go directly into modules or reports so that you can get quick access to things, as well as the users have the opportunity to customize each of the elements for their dashboard. So you are presented with the specific modules and processes that you want to see when you enter the system. And you have options for numbering and ordering those elements, filtering on specific data, as well as linking into the windows and the reports like we had discussed. So I'm going to pass it over to Janine to get into a little more detail on the elements themselves.
Great, thanks Megan. Welcome everyone. All right, so when you first launch into the dashboard, you are presented with the right-hand side. There's multiple panes that you can scroll to access, and on the left-hand side is typically the menu of all the modules that you have. So we'd like to remind everyone that you have the option to actually customize the element panes that you see on the dashboard. Obviously wanting to keep the ones that you're going to access on the more frequent basis towards the top so that you're not having to scroll all the way down on the screen. So how to do this is on the top toolbar, there's a modify button. And when you click on this, it pops up this window here, which is very similar to the pop-ups that you get in the other screens when you're customizing your columns. So we give to you on the right-hand side the elements that are currently displaying on the dashboard and the elements, all of the elements that are available on the left-hand side. In the left-hand side, you'll see check marks in front of some of these, and those indicate to you the actual elements you have already selected. So you simply would highlight on either side the element that you want, and you can add or remove back and forth. You also can highlight to move them up and down. So if you wanted to take your inventory metric element up towards the top, you would simply click on that, click move up to where it is in the position that you would like it. I also have highlighted here that you can actually save multiple versions of these element panes. So this is an example of where we've created a product hot list for several schedulers. All right, once you've decided how you want this set up, you simply click OK. All right, so here is an example of some of the dashboard elements. And excuse me, this is the two hot lists. So where we have highlighted Nelson's product hot list, this is one of the links. So if you click on that, it will launch you right into the product hot list based on the filters that we have preset here. And how you do that is you will go into there's icons on the right-hand side. So you have the red X, which would close the panel and remove it. You have a refresh icon, and then you have an edit content. It looks like a little note card with a hand pointing to it. So you select that, And this is going to allow you to edit the content. As illustrated here with the drop-down, you do also have the ability to move the panel up and down directly from here as well without having to go into that modify screen on the toolbar. So when I go into edit content, it's going to pull up the options that I have for filtering or setting. You can use or select however many rows that you actually want displayed on the panel. You have up to 50 lines. You have the option to show or hide columns. So if you want to change the columns that are presenting for you. And then we give you various filters here. So everything defaults to the user itself for the dashboard. So if I own product and I come into my dashboard, the back orders that are on the dashboard element will be my back orders. The product hot list would be my product hot list. But let's say that you're a manager or you don't actually manage product. So you wouldn't want to use a default. You would want to go ahead and change the settings. So you have the option to pick particular scheduler. You could pick a vendor. If you happen to be a multi-echelon customer, you could select specific warehouses. We also give you next review dates, including them, excluding them, drop ship. If you're a Forecast 21 customer, you could isolate offers in particular if you'd like. And then you also have the option for status codes. You would change your element name up in the right-hand corner. So this would be the option that you would utilize if you wanted to, for example, make 2 different types of hot lists that you want to launch from the dashboard. Once you've made all of these options, you simply click Finished. And now I'll pass it back to Megan.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the next couple of slides here are outlining best practices for the dashboard elements. I'll just cover some of the highlights here, but this is a good place for you to refer back to later in the recordings or just make sure that you're addressing some of these key elements here. So on the first slide, we have the number one process that we recommend having on your dashboard is the daily processes. This is suggested for all your users just so you can see a status of your interface files and keep an eye on anything that needs your attention. Another one of the big ones is the favorite reports on this page. So allowing you to link directly into your favorite reports as well as linking into those custom reports you may have created in the DRS module. Okay, and then we also have our interface error options and so forth. Here on the next screen, we have our master scheduling status so that you can view your start and end times and be aware of anything which have failed, as well as another big one that users often have on the dashboard is the open back orders. So giving you visibility to those open back orders and the SKUs and quantities so that you can keep an eye on that information as well. And then links to your products not to be released and your hot list can also be set up on screen here. Okay, and then wrapping up with the remaining best practices, a list of your recent offers is also a big one that can be great for viewing your offer performance and a quick way for you to see what is currently running, along with reviewing your requisition status. So seeing any requisitions that are not in a closed status so that you can keep an eye on your purchase orders and what you have open at this time. All right. We also have some options with your top product revenue variance as well as your top product unit variance. So quick access to this information, getting an idea of where you're at with those top products in terms of revenue and units. Okay.
Thanks, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that Megan pointed out is a really important element to have, and we typically have this as the default very initial panel that you'll see, is the daily processes. What's key about this is this gives you instant notification that all of the processes ran and are completed and are current. So we have 3 main files that are interfaced every day from your host, which include all of your on-hand, on-order, back order, product information, your sales, all that information. When that information comes in and we combine it with all the work that you've been doing within the application for forecasting and things like that, we combine that and then run master scheduling. That's the final process that must run, that then pushes all of that data through into the master scheduling module, which then updates all of your hot lists, gives you the most current view in your materials planning window. As a user, you want to make sure that every day you come in here, you see today's date, that everything is in white and it all says completed. That way you know that you're working with the most current information. What I have illustrated here is things that are highlighted in either red or yellow. So these are typically jobs or processes that have run at some point in time. And we do give you the ability to edit, to assign the color and the hour that it will trigger this color to give you a visual. So build CS compare is highlighted in red. So it's been at least 48 hours since this job is run, which is normal. We run this on a weekly basis, so that's nothing that is concerning. It's just, again, highlighting that it's not something that's run on a daily basis. And then the yellow is highlighted, it's been last run in the last 24 hours. Again, that's normal on a process like this. Another example you might see color coding is if you've ever had us repost demand for you, that will most likely be highlighted in red for quite some time because that's usually a one-off job that we'll do for you. But key, make sure that you have current date and all is completed. All right, the other one, other element that we find really, really important to make sure you've got up towards the front or the top of the dashboard elements are your favorite reports. As we mentioned in our Dear Us webinar a while back, when you are creating reports or creating a version of a report that you're going to use on a regular basis, whether that's daily or weekly, we give you that option to mark it as a favorite report. And what's great about that is it now will be listed here in this favorite reports element, that all you simply need to do is click on this hyperlink and it'll automatically launch your report. You don't have to go to the reports module and go looking for the report. You simply launch it right from here. Another really popular element that we have are inventory metrics. So this is another example of where you might want to save multiple copies of this because we give you 3 inventory metrics to look at. We have cost of goods sold, inventory turn, and period ending inventory. So we have graphs. You have the ability to edit what type of graph you want, and Stuart will be able to show you examples of these. We also give you the option, and this particular one is an example with cost of goods sold. We give you in the edit content, you can actually put in a budget for this. And when you are close or not close to that budget amounts that you're putting in, we also give you a color coding that advises either warning, which I believe is yellow, it's faint here, but it's yellow, and then critical is in red. So if you're utilizing, you can key in a budget here and use this as a reference. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Stuart for a live review.
Thanks, Janine. This is Stuart, and here's a sample dashboard. When you first come into the dashboard, some people go to the different modules and click on the links to go like to the hot list, or they could click on forecasting, or up here you could have your quick link to PLF or materials planning. But the dashboard elements give you quick information here. And you could see these are all the different elements that we were discussing. This is user specific, so this would be for me and how my elements look and filters and what I selected. If you click modify, you could go in there and start adding or deleting whatever elements you see. You could also move them up and down. You could also add multiple copies if you wanted to. So if we wanted to add SKU hot list, we could add 2 of these to the hot list or just remove it. And you could move these up or down. Okay, and this is similar to the customizing columns. that we have in the different modules. And the check marks show the ones that we're showing here. So the first one we spoke about was the daily process. And so this, we recommend most users have this as the first element up on top. For all the elements, if you go here and highlight, it'll give you a description of it. So there's a list of most recent runtimes. As a rule, your interface, it disappears quickly. As a rule, your interfaces should be running daily, okay? Here you could refresh, and here where you could edit content. So depending on the element, you're gonna have different content that you're able to filter. So in this case, you could change the display options for yellow or red, depending on when the process ran. But it seems to make sense to do this 24 hours and 48 hours. And that's because you really want to see that, and this is a sample dashboard, so this has a lot of things set up here that you're not going to have showing. But you want to make sure the master scheduling completed, that's in white, that your IP and POS, in this case, it isn't, it hasn't been updated in the sample dashboard. You want to make sure that's in white. You may have some that are in this red. You may have this database backup. You may have had some backup at some time, which would be older. Build CS compare usually runs weekly, depending on your own settings. And that's really just something specific in the mix percent history screen. CS Matrix usually does run every day because that does have your mix percent history. And things like Venture 21 projections, those also depending whether you have those running daily or you're having that running weekly. Okay, the next is interface errors. And as we mentioned, this does have a hyperlink. So this, clicking on this would take you into the interface errors. That's the same thing as going here to interfacing and clicking on interface errors. Okay, so it's just really a quick look. And this would be for an administrator to take a look to see these errors that came up, make sure there's nothing showing here large or different from the last time you ran it. So there's not much content to edit here. Like I said, that's basically for an administrator to go in and work on those. The open back orders will show you back orders for company, and it could be for a specific user if you wanted it. And that's where you would go in to edit the content. If you click on it, on any of these, it opens up a crystal report that doesn't really give you that much information. It'll give you information here like next PO and receipt date. It'll give you price on this one, but it doesn't give you that much information. Instead, you're able to click to a DRS report. And the way you do that is you go into the edit content, and you could select, well, excuse me. You could select a default DRS report. So this would be the VDRS backorder. You may have different versions saved. So if you select that, you could link directly in there. You could also set this up for a specific user to see back orders for that user or the SKU status. This also has an option to see a graph if you wanted to see charts for some reason, 2D or 3D charts, or just the grid. Like we said, if we go in here, you could click here, your open back orders. That'll automatically run this open back order report. And this does give you more information. You may have grouped here, I group by vendor name, and it'll give you info like the back order quantity, total price, SKUs, PO information, a lot of different good information, more than you'd see on the report itself, when you're going to that grid report. Okay, and again, you can configure this for a user. It'll show a specific user. You may want to see more than one, so you could have two of these elements. It'll also show you SKUs with no receipts on back order, which is good information to have here. So clicking on this takes you to the back order report that's similar to the favorite reports. So the favorite reports will give you all the ones you saved, either in DRS or these standard reports. So this is good. A lot of users set this up because they want to go in there and have a quick check. There are some reports that you want to run, on a daily basis. So if I click on this one, it'll automatically link and it'll automatically run also. So I have this SKU listing for this offer, and it'll automatically give me up-to-date information. I could go in and change this offer if I wanted to. Now, if you go here to open, you could see here, these are my favorite reports. And you could see how these are checked. So these are all checked as favorites. And those are the ones that'll show on your dashboard. I could take any report. So if I went up here and I clicked on this report and I want it to be a favorite, I could do that. And then when I back out of here, it'll show up, but let me minimize that. You do need to refresh it. So once you refresh it, you'll see that new report that's here. Okay, and that's the DRS reports. You could also save what we call the standard reports. Those are the ones that are here. Not as useful because these do not run automatically. For a lot of these, you have to go and input offers. It does not save those offers. It will bring this up, which is a standard report, and you can do it from there. Okay, so really useful to set those favorite reports up. This is master scheduling status. It'll show you the status, and if you open this up, it'll show you all the different processes that are in master scheduling for that master scheduling process and the run times. All right, and you could get more of that information in master scheduling. We have that run master scheduling, which will give you more info. That'll show you the status of the current plus older versions that are there. All right, the hot lists. So this is where we set up two different hot lists. Again, if I'm a manager, I may want to see these different hot lists, or I may want to see a hot list for a particular vendor. This will go in and will actually sort by the short-term requirement units. And you could do the same with the SKU hot list. You could go and customize these columns to see the columns that you want to see it. And if we go to edit content, you could see that you could change the number of rows that you see. As we said, you could go in there and pick a particular scheduler or a particular vendor, and then you could save that as that vendor's hot list if you want to be able to check that. The same with this other information here. Okay, and you could also have the settings same as my product hot list. Okay, so if I go here, I could either click on the product and it'll take me to materials planning, or I could click on the hot list and it'll open up the hot list here. Okay, and there's my hot list. Here's the products that were listed there. Now, when I X'd off this, it says, do you want current filter settings to be saved as your defaults? I would say no. The reason I say no is because then I might want to click on this hot list. Okay, and so this then is bringing me a different hot list. I don't know if I have anything here, actually. I put a vendor in. Okay, but that's the way you could have two different hot lists. And again, you may want to have it for a vendor. You may want to have it for different information. The next is products not released. So these are products that you set up in maps and you don't have the release flag checked. You know, for one reason or another, you're waiting for information for the vendor. Maybe something that you really don't want to go to master scheduling, and that's when we release them. So the offer itself, if you click on the offer, it'll open that up in Maps. It'll take you to Maps planning. But you could also expand this, and you could go in and you could release all or release one particular product, and you'll get a warning there, and it'll tell you that it's released. All right, this is good to make sure. Take a look at some of these offers. If a recent offer, especially if it's in plan status 9 and already out of, well, actually that automatically releases it. But if it's a recent offer, you may want to go in and check these. Okay, and this way you could do it and see how many of these are open, and you could release individual or release all. Requisition status. So this will show you the status for these different requisitions. If you go in there to edit content, you can increase the number of rows. You could change the status. I don't know why you'd want to see closed status. We said our best practices is open, but I would suggest you just leave this as open or on hold or needs approval. And again, you could, similar to the other elements, you could put this for a particular vendor. You could do selected users and selected approvers. Okay, so for the ones that need approval. So if you have approval set up, you could see this was done by test, demo is approval, and it needs approval. And you'll see the status that's listed here. Okay, SPO hot list. This really just takes you a link to a suggested requisition hot list. I think, Megan, did we have a question on transfers or suggested transfers?
Yeah, we had a couple questions come through. Janine's been diligently responding. One of them is regarding any options for suggested requisitions and suggested transfers to the warehouse to warehouse.
Yeah, we really, in the elements, you just have the suggested requisitions hot list. If you're ordering from a vendor for a particular warehouse, this would take you to that hot list. But we really don't have any element there for, let's say, the transfer hot list or the link to transfer order review. So not at this time, we don't have an element for that. This is really specifically just SPO ordering from the vendor.
Okay. A follow-up to that also, how do you update the inventory targets for the inventory metrics?
I'll get to that. I'm working my way down, so yeah.
Okay, we'll hang on to that one then.
Okay. All right, top product unit variance. If you click here, this will open the variance report, and you'll be able to see the most recent variance. You could also go down and see the top variance. So it'll show you the offer product, projected and forecast units, and the absolute difference. I think the only content that you have here is the number of rows. Oh, actually, you could do it for selected users also. So you have the status, because you could go in and do a status on the variance, new in process and done. You could select users, and you could increase the number of rows. And so this is the unit variance, and there's also a revenue variance. Recent offer list. So if you click this, this takes you into offer performance and marketing, where you have a lot of information of your recent offers. But in a few companies, not all the users have access to the marketing module. And so if they don't have that access, they can't go into offer performance. So this is one way for them to see recent offers and specs on these offers. And the offer performance shows you active offers. Recent offers, you could actually choose to see inactive offers or these older offers. Looks like these highlight in yellow to show them. If you click on the offer itself, I think it takes you to offer setup. I should know this. And it does. It takes you to offer setup. You could customize this if you go into edit content. You could show hide columns. You could change a number of rows. You could show offers dropped in the last few months. It is an older dashboard. You may only want to see ones dropped in the last 6 months or so. You could filter for division. The orders, you could use actual or macro. And then here you could have offers, either active, inactive, or both. So there's one place for you to see if you wanted to see those inactive offers or those past offers. Okay, so this will give you a quick look at some of these. You would want to look at the percent complete. You would want to look at the macro, projected, and actual units. All right, inventory metric. Now, in this sample dashboard, we have no inventory. So I'm not going to bring up the inventory metric for period end inventory or turnover. But we do have cost of goods sold. So that's the one that I brought in here. You could see it shows you the graph for each of these years, and you could select the number of years you want to see. I did put in some targets here, and you have the choice to see those targets within the graph. You also see the grid, and you see acceptable, warning, and critical. You could go in, and I'll show you in a minute to edit the content. You could go in there and set that and set like a budget, you know, for each month or period. And if it's, you'll get a warning if it's below the minimum, and then you have a separate thing for critical. And so this will show you color code how to do that. If you go in here, you could change to charts, a 3D chart if you wanted to. I don't like that. I just like the 2D chart. And go in here to edit content. So there's a lot here with editing content. First of all, you could pick a particular scheduler if you wanted to. You could change a selection period to weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly, changing the number of years. Merchandise hierarchy, you could set this up and set up a separate element for a vendor, category, or product. Product gets kind of detailed, but it's possible you want to do a category or vendor and see your inventory levels. Here's a report metric. So this one's called cost of goods sold. If I brought over 2 more of these elements, I could rename it these others and have different information. And here I could actually go in here and change this to cost of goods sold and change the name. Your default chart could be a line or a bar. You could hide the target ranges or not. So here's where you could go in here and set the target levels. So this could be your target levels that you set up each month. Acceptable range, min and max, is where you would see that in yellow. So if it falls below the min or max, I didn't fill in everything here, it'll show you in yellow. And then warning range is where it'll show you in red the critical. So this is where you would have your min and max that are set up here. Okay, and let me let this refresh here. But that is how you set that up. And then you have the choice whether you want to see those target levels on the graph or not.
Stuart, there was another question in regards to that. How do you exclude seasonal offers from the cost of goods report? You would want to exclude seasonal offers since they would overstate your cost of goods. And I didn't believe that this element is offer related. I think it's
this strictly, so the cost of goods sold comes directly from your order transactions. Okay, so it's your order transactions, which you could see in your order detail report if you ran that. So it won't show you seasonal offers, time-based or seasonal-based. It does it strictly by the order transactions. Because you're right, otherwise we would be duplicating the information.
Right. Thanks.
Okay. And just to show you here, if I wanted to modify to bring in another inventory metric, I could go in and add it. Come on. And then I could change that element to, let's say, the period and inventory. Like I said, in the sample dashboard, we really don't have any inventory showing. I guess that's a default. So you could see that actually we do have inventory, but just recent. So anyway, this is useful information to have, especially to have these three and to set those budgets. And now I'm going to go back to the presentation.
Okay. Thanks, Stuart. All right, so to wrap up here, just a reminder with the user conference coming up February 2nd through the 5th in Orlando, Florida. Our early registration does end next Friday, the 13th. So be sure to register before then to take advantage of the discount. If you need help with registering or need any information or the link to the registration, please email us directly and we'll help you out with that. All right, and then other than that, I think we answered all the other questions. Let me just make sure here. Yep. If you do have any other questions that come up related to this webinar or anything else, you can always reach out to us directly. We do have another webinar scheduled for this December 18th. We'll be reviewing customizing hot lists as well as viewing key fields on the hot lists. So we'll go into more detail on that then. If there's no other questions though, then we'll wrap up for today. We appreciate everyone taking the time to join us and I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you.